Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant. This weekend is a huge night for boxing. Then again, anytime Canelo steps in the ring, it is a huge night for boxing. It's a big deal when the pound-for-pound king steps back into the ring. Now, what makes this particular night special, though, is that Canelo has settled in that 168 division, the super middleweight division, and within the last year has set his eyes on undisputed. If you guys don't know what that means, I'll leave a link of a video where I explain the meaning of undisputed and holding multiple belts in boxing, the four main ones. But essentially, real short, it means he wants all four of the major belts in boxing at the 168 weight. He wants the WBA, the WBC, the IBF, and the WBO. I'll leave a link where I describe in detail about each and every single one of these belts and what it means to hold a few or more or all of them. Currently, Canelo defeated Callum Smith for the WBA and the vacant WBC super belt. He fought Billy Joe Saunders for the WBO belt, dominating both of these fighters. Now, the only one who stands in his way from his undisputed championship is the IBF championship belt holder, the American himself, Sweet Hands Caleb Plant. Now, before we get into it, make sure you like this video, share it, follow us on our social medias. I'll leave all the descriptions inside of the video as well as links down below here on, and you can see them here on the screen. Now, Caleb Plant, 168 pounds, 21-0. He is 6'1" in height. He has a height advantage over Canelo, but everybody tends to have a height advantage over Canelo. I think Canelo's only like 5'8" or 5'9". 74 reach advantage, so he also has a small little length advantage. He's an orthodox style fighter, so he's going to be fighting with the lead foot being his left foot. And he's the current IBF champion after winning it off Jose Utskatsegi. Sorry if I butchered that name. I'm terrible with everyone's names, even like normal American names. That's my bad. And outboxing Jose, a veteran fighter compared to him. And using and utilizing his distance and length as well as his fantastic footwork. Caleb has proven that he's worthy of championship status and that he is a true boxer with a very smart and boxing-friendly style. A number of TKOs, mostly unanimous decisions, defending his belt and his career overall. Caleb is not a fighter to be taken lightly, and that he is very smart and capable fighter who can perform better than most of the most seasoned fighters at 168. What makes Caleb so special, though, outside of being a technical fighter, is the man comes from nothing and has experienced some of the worst traumas. He lost his daughter at a very young age. A man like that will not allow this opportunity to slip up. He's not going to lack focus. No, he's going to be more focused than anyone else because he's fighting for this particular cause. Caleb more or less lacks experience, but he makes up for it by being smart in the ring, and he understands how to utilize his advantages. Now, the question is, are those enough to take on Canelo? Canelo Alvarez, as Saul Canelo Alvarez, his full name. A fun fact about Canelo, if you aren't a Spanish speaker, it actually means cinnamon, and I guess it's a common term used for anyone in the Latin American community. I think it might be mostly Mexican. I could be wrong, but for somebody who's redhead, it's kind of similar to the idea of gordo. If you aren't familiar, gordo in most Latin American countries means fatty or like little tubby guy, but it's a compliment. It's not really like an insult. It's more like it's a family name that a lot of people give you. And so Canelo actually means, for you non-Spanish speaking people, cinnamon, and is usually referred to a red-headed individual. Now, let's get to the facts. Let's get to the stats. Excuse me. 56 1-1. His only loss to Floyd, his only ever unanimous tie was with Gennady Golovkin, Triple G. His only loss was to Floyd Mayweather. He's 5'8", so I was right about that. Orthodox fighter, also fights with the left foot forward, 70.5-inch reach advantage. Currently, Canelo is the unified super middleweight champion, running through the middleweight division at 168, which is the division he's aiming for, undisputed, as we mentioned before. He's already collecting all the belts. And after having collected most of the belts, even demolished somebody in the light heavyweight division in Sergey Kovalev. So he's constantly working. Canelo returned to 168 after facing Kovalev and began to move toward undisputed aspirations in the super middleweight division. He started with Callum Smith, collecting that WBA and the vacant WBC belt. Canelo put on a clinic for 12 straight rounds, dominating him, then destroying his mandatory fight, Ildrum, and then going straight for Billy Joe Saunders a few months later. Like, it was all back-to-back. I'm pretty sure Callum Smith was in December. I think Ildrum was like January, February. I could be wrong about these dates. Don't quote me on that. And then he fights Billy Joe Saunders, I think like late spring or early spring. And now he's fighting again within the year. Like, the man is active. He also broke Billy Joe Saunders' face in that fight. I was watching that. Billy Joe didn't even come out of the corner that night. So Canelo is just tanking through these guys, showing why he is the number one boxer currently right now, especially maybe at 168. Now, Caleb Plant is the only obstacle left for Canelo to overcome in order to become undisputed champion. The only problem is I don't think Caleb is an easy obstacle to defeat, but with Canelo's extensive career and experience, it's so hard to choose against this man. Canelo has all but perfected his style of boxing and proven he has a chin. He can take multiple hits from killers like Gennady Golovkin, who is considered to be at, the 154 division, to hit like a heavyweight. I could be wrong about the division Gennady's in. I always forget the weights. He's proven to have near perfect head movement, barely being touched by Daniel Jacobs, who also had a reach advantage against Canelo, mind you. He's even stand with the big boys at light heavyweight when he fought Sergey Kovalev and beat him and knocked him out in the 11th. I mean, Canelo has faced so many different varieties of adversity that to make him more than equipped to face Plant is like, I don't see any opposition that Plant can put forward, especially with his only ever loss being to someone considered the greatest boxer in history, Floyd Money Mayweather. You can argue Floyd's late prime, like his right before he exit his prime. This is where it becomes hard. It's hard to choose against Canelo. He is clearly the veteran to Plant. 56 fights. It was the third. 30 more fights, 35 more fights than Plant has ever fought. And that's at professional level. That's not even anywhere near amateur. Canelo also started very young. He's faced levels of competition in multiple divisions and has completely annihilated all the top competition at 168. Where Caleb has merely been super middleweight champion for a few fights in the last couple of years, Caleb, though, has done something most fighters who start fighting later in their career struggle to do, and that's become a good fundamental fighter with great clean technique and extensive fight and ring IQ. Actually has more, I'm pretty sure he has better IQ than more fighters with double his experience. Truly, Plant is a talented individual when it comes to boxing as a whole. He makes his opponents on average only land about 6.6% of their punches, making him one of the most evasive fighters in super middleweight division. But the issue is none of those opponents were anywhere near Canelo's skill set. And I have to go with the numbers and stats here. Canelo on paper, 59 fights, 38 knockouts, 425 rounds completed. Canelo averages getting hit 7 punches a round. That means guys barely touch him a round, and he's fought 425 rounds in his entire career. He himself lands 47% of his power shots, and that outclasses every other super middleweight in the division. Canelo on paper outclasses Plant. He's a multiple division champion with wins over names like Sugar Shane Mosley, Miguel Cotto, Daniel Jacobs, Gennady Golovkin. It's hard to believe that Plant can bring something to the ring that Canelo has not already faced. Right now, Plant will need to utilize his distance, reach, and evasive maneuvers. I mean, he isn't called Sweet Hands for nothing, right? Plant's style does pose a threat to that straightforward Mexican style. The only issue is that Canelo has faced that style that Plant puts forward, with Mayweather being also an evasive defensive counter striker, and Eris Land Lara in that fight as well, where Lara is also evasive and moving, and when he's in a corner, he's out, and he's gone. So even in those instances, I don't think Plant is near the skill level of Lara, or especially not Mayweather. And those were like when Canelo was young and green around the gills. So it's hard to see that now this extensive, more seasoned Canelo could possibly lose to Caleb Plant this weekend. So here's my pick. Canelo will likely have a chance to win by all means, TKO, KO, or decision. But I'm not counting Plant out. He does have a chance to outperform Canelo with a smart plan. But everybody comes in to the ring with a plan, and then they get punched in the face, and that plan goes to shit. I like Plant. Plant is actually my favorite before Canelo joined the 168 division. Plant was my favorite to watch. It's so clean. He's so slick. He's so good. I cannot see Plant pulling one over on Canelo. He barely KOs or TKOs his opponents, and Canelo has never been stopped, even by Triple G or Miguel Cotto, Gennady Golovkin, who are known for their power punch boxing styles. I have Canelo taking this fight, and I think on Saturday we're going to have the very first Mexican-American undisputed king of the 168 division. I guess he's not Mexican-American. Mexican undisputed king of the 168 division. Yeah, I don't really have many doubts, but again, there's always a chance for the underdog to win. The last time I made a prediction on a fight the last time I made a prediction on a fighter I favorited for undisputed championship, Lomachenko lost to Teofimo Lopez. Yeah, it still upsets me to this day. But again, anything is possible. Thank you guys for listening to my breakdown of the Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant for the 168 super middleweight undisputed championship on Saturday, November 6th. Make sure you watch that fight. We will be back to discuss the results of that fight after we watch it. Remember, like, subscribe, share with your friends if you're interested in learning things combat sports through my channel. Make sure you follow us. I will leave our social media up on the screen, and I will leave links down below in the description so you can follow us on TikTok and Twitter. Guys, you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Yeah, let's talk about the next fight. Actually, we'll be covering UFC soon. All right. Adios, guys.